See you later.
Oh, sweet.
Thanks.
No one ever told us where the easy part begins. The story that they sold us keeps us hanging from the end. So we'll keep on starting the fires, thinking we'll smoke out the liars. We don't give up when we're tired. That isn't the way that I'm wired. Someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world. I know. Someday, we're gonna rule the world. Counting down to explosion. I hear the moment approaching. Someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world. Waiting. Avalanches are the calm before the fall. Lightning, when it flashes, tells a story of it all. So we'll keep on starting the fires, thinking we'll smoke out the liars. We don't give up when we're tired. That isn't the way that I'm wired. We own the future. We own the future. Someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world. I know. Someday, we're gonna rule the world. Counting down to explosion. I hear the moment approaching. Someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world. Arms cold like we're reborn. Our eyes light up like a thunderstorm. There are no locked doors anymore. We own the future. We own the future. Whoa, someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world. I know. Someday, we're gonna rule the world. Counting down to explosion. I hear the moment approaching. Someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world. Someday, someday, we're gonna rule the world.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It is 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time, 10 o'clock here in Colorado. It is game day. Saturday is game day. Welcome, everyone. Hope everyone has had a great week and staying happy and healthy out there. The past, these past few weeks that we've been doing these clinic sessions, we've really touched on a lot of the things that go into making us better officials, and we wanted to really kind of start to bring that all together with game management. And so that's a term that is, often put out there. And so we want to spend today talking about that and what goes into that. And so today we have a little bit different type of a presentation where we're going to have four people talking about different aspects of game management. So it's myself, Corey Luxner, we have Brandon Cruz, Tuta Salam, and Daniel Young all on board here today to kind of have a roundtable type of approach to game management. And so, in today's game of football, whatever level you may be, whether you're working Pop Warner, you're working, major college, and anywhere in between, how the game plays is really one of our most important, if not the most important aspect of our job. In fact, that's probably the number one concern for most commissioners and officiating supervisors out there today. Now, more than any other time in the history of our games, the likelihood of a game having some type of a broadcast or video record is very, very high, whether that's, your traditional outlets like the ESPNs, Fox Sports, ABCs, things like that. Or, we have games being streamed on social media. We have youth games being streamed on social media. So how the game is managed, how that game plays is more paramount as ever. So how we go about making our calls really is equally as important as the calls that we make. So, what all goes into effectively managing the game? And this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are some of the things that I think most of us think about uh, when we talk game management. Communicating with the coaches, obviously how we talk with them, body language, things of that nature, the information that we give out to everyone, give to those coaches is part of game management. Having that situational awareness, where are we in the game? Is it a 50-point blowout or is it a nail biter coming down to the end? What we always have to be aware of the situation around us. Clock management is paramount to game management. If we screw up the clock somewhere along the line, that could have dire consequences for how that game plays. It could definitely impact one team over the other. So that's a big part of game management. Player interaction. How are we talking with the players? How are we communicating with the players? So we're not talking so much about how do players interact with one another, but how do we interact with the players? We talk about, substitution process. That's part of game management. We're going to have a complete session dedicated to the substitution process coming up next week. Penalty enforcement. Obviously, that is when the cameras are on us to see, okay, do these guys know what they're doing when we are enforcing a penalty? So how that comes across to the viewing public, to those in the stands, to the coaches, to the players, that really lends to our credibility and thusly our game management. When do we use a flag? When do we talk to a player versus throwing that flag? I think, as we all get into officiating, we think, okay, I got to throw this flag. That's my job. They give me this nice shiny yellow flag. I need to throw it on the ground. And as you evolve throughout your career, you start to realize that sometimes the best flag is the one that you don't throw. And having that effective communication with the players and the coaches to effectively manage the game without putting a flag on the ground. Getting in and out of media breaks if you have a game that does have media coverage, whether that's radio, whether that's TV, or whether it's social media, whatever it may be, how do you get in and out of those to make it look like it's seamless? And then, there's obviously much, much more that goes into game management. And as we discuss and dissect some of these plays later on, throughout the session, we will delve into those. So just know that if we nail all of these aspects of game management, we're all but assured of having a great game because we've won half the battle because we are taking care of that game management. When does game management begin? I think it starts now. I think, in the off season, are you polishing your routines? Are you looking at what you do pre-snap? Are you looking what you do when you're on the field, the 90 minutes before? Are you looking at what you do when you arrive to the stadium? Improving your knowledge through, rule study, video study. I know most of us around the country and around the world, for that matter, are going through different rules sessions right now. Obviously, we're having this type of clinics, and there are other video, Zoom calls, things like that. So a lot of us right now, this is when we start to set that foundation for for our game management getting ready to come up here in the fall. Obviously, maintaining our physical fitness, our appearance, that is a big deal. That is something, you look at some of the old footage of officials in, 20, 30 years ago, the physical appearance and physical fitness was not really something that was really that important back then, but right now it is. So all of us are, working hard to maintain that fitness, because if we go out there and we're trying to keep up with, supreme athletes, and we're out of shape, that's going to show, and that's going to affect how the game plays, and it's also going to affect our credibility. So hopefully all of us are, even in this time where we're kind of locked down and gyms are shut down, that we're finding a way to get out and maintain that fitness. Once you get into the season, that week leading up to the game, Are you taking care of all the things that you need to so that when game day arrives, you don't have to worry about anything? Are your travel plans made in enough time? Is your gear bag ready to go so that you're not trying to throw that together at the last minute? I know that when I get home from a game, I immediately wash everything in there and I repack it immediately so that I know that everything that I need is in that bag. Once it comes to Thursday night, I take everything out, repack it again just to make sure everything is there where it needs to be. Are all of your crew or all of your duty or conference duties taken care of? Were you in charge of hotels? Were you in charge of rental cars? Were you in charge of getting clips for the pregame conference? All of those things, are you taking care of all of that stuff, before that game arrives? Reviewing your game video. That's part of preparing to manage the game. Have you looked at previous weeks, the previous week's game to see, okay, what do I need to polish up? What do I need to do a little bit differently going forward? Have you looked at video of the teams that you're going to officiate? That's something that I think as you evolve and ascend the officiating ranks, it's something that's more and more important to know that don't let the first time you see a play from a team surprise you. Have an idea of what their tendencies are, who are their playmakers, things like that. So then obviously you have your crew pregame. I am a big fan of doing it the night before because I think game day should be reserved for the game. But I know each and every crew is going to be a little bit differently. If you have a 7 o'clock p.m. kickoff, maybe it makes sense to do it in the morning. I just, that's the way I like to do it. And I think a lot of referees will agree with that. But we'll move on here to the next one. Once you get to the day of the game, this is kind of some of the things that we touched on earlier this week with our deep wing mechanics. When you get to the field, when you get to the stadium, get there with plenty of time to spare. There's no worse feeling than putting that extra pressure on yourself. You arrive to the stadium and then you're in a rush, and it just really messes up your routine. Treating stadium and game personnel with respect. They are part of our team. They are part of those are the people that are going to help us achieve a high level of game management. So, always thank them for their participation. Thank them for volunteering their time, for giving their time to the game of football. Be physically, visually, and mentally prepared to get to work. Do your stretches, whatever it takes for you to take that field. And then when we get out there 90 minutes before kickoff, going forward, that's when you finalize your preparation. That's when if you're an umpire, you're watching the linemen do their warm-ups. If you're a quarterback, or you're a referee, you're watching the quarterback, you're talking to the quarterbacks. If you're line of scrimmage guys, you're watching, the alignment, how are guys getting off the line? And then if you're a deep official, obviously you're watching pass routes, you're watching punts to get your eyes ready for what's about to happen with that game. So with that said, we're going to get into some plays here, and first to kick us off here with our plays, we're going to kick it over to Daniel Young, and he's going to talk to us about situational awareness. So Daniel, take it away.
Yeah, Corey, thanks, man. Before we get to the plays, just want to talk about this topic a little bit first. But man, after that video and this 8th cup of coffee, dude, I'm ready for kickoff. Let's go. I'm just kidding. It's only my 6th cup of coffee. Hey, one of the things that's been really cool about this that we've mentioned a lot. Good morning, good afternoon, by the way, wherever you are. Thanks so much for being here. But one of the things we've really enjoyed is just the response. We've said this over and over. Got a great crowd with us today, and we're so appreciative of that. Been really cool just to see folks we know, friends we've officiated with, folks we've never met, but just would be remiss today if we didn't give an extra special shout out to a couple of guys joining us. Mr. Ken Rivera and Mr. Phil Laurie are in the webinar with us today, and just so humbling to see guys that have contributed to so many officials over the years joining us, and certainly have been integral parts in our growth as officials. And you won't find 2 better men in this business anywhere, I can assure you. So hope you guys are doing well. Thanks so much for being here with us. Like Corey said, this is a really big topic. We've got a lot of things that we could potentially talk about. Certainly not going to be exhaustive today, but just some of the elements of game management that we think are really critical to, and hopefully we can speak somewhat intelligently to. And when you think about this idea, everything kind of starts with this concept of situational awareness. We use this a lot in officiating now, And really, this is a phrase or an idea that comes from combat situations in the military, and that's where it started, but it's grown legs and it's made its way into all kind of different ways, or areas of lives, business applications, and certainly on the field. We use it a lot, but it in and of itself is a really big topic. So I'm just going to touch on it really briefly, but don't want to kind of present myself as any kind of an expert. There's folks way smarter than I am who have done a lot of research on this idea. There's scholarly journals written on it, so you can get into it as deep as you want to. This started for me a couple of years ago. My referee asked me to do a presentation for the crew about it. But my point is, it's a really big idea, but it has great officiating application. We just want to make sure that we understand the context and how it applies to what we're doing. So here's kind of the definition for us that we're going to use. And really all we're trying to do with situational awareness is shorten our response time from the time that an event takes place to the time for us to respond to it, right? We want to shorten that window. It doesn't mean we ever want to look in a hurry, right? I'm not trying to contradict this idea of being slow and deliberate in our process and our decision-making. However, oftentimes how quick we respond is really, really important, whether that's because the clock is actually running down or because player A said something ugly about player B's mama and we need to respond before player B responds. Being aware of our surroundings applies to almost every element of game management, right? Whether we're talking about the clock at the end of the half or talking about working through a communication process with coaches. It all starts with this idea of situational awareness, and that's where we wanted to start it from today. So when we think about situational awareness, right here, we've got a score, right? That's a part of being situationally aware. We've got a clock. We've got a play clock. We've got down and distance. We've got what quarter we're in. We've got a formation, right? We've got a field that maybe got rained on yesterday. We could have some wind blowing. That's next level illustration, by the way, guys. We could have an umpire who pulled a hamstring, right? So there's all these different elements that are creating this environment that this play is getting ready to take place in. And the point is that as we construct and kind of a pattern in our brains of what's getting ready to happen, if we're missing something in that equation, then we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage. So the first thing is just recognizing all those environmental factors. And how do I get that off? There we go. And so when we talk about situational awareness, we don't want to be overly linear because it's not necessarily just a progression, but it's not just this recognition. It goes a little bit deeper than that. So we've got these level here's, and I'm not going to speak to all of this, and the slides will be available to you guys. But effectively, we want to recognize all of those elements, and then we want to combine them together to help us understand the situation as a whole. And then lastly, we want to take that comprehension of the entire situation and try to apply it to what potentially could happen next. And this is where it's important that I add this disclaimer that we're not assuming what's going to happen next, right? We're going to anticipate and then adapt as necessary. But that's what situational awareness really does for us. And we're going to watch a couple of plays, but I want to give you some guidance about how we work on this, because I think that's always important, that we don't just say, this is important, but rather we help you work through how to improve it. In my mind, and again, not an expert, I've never written any books on situational awareness, don't have a degree in the topic, but when I think about it, it really comes down to two things, and that's being very, very prepared, and Corey touched on all of those things that are such an important part of game management, and then combining that preparation with great focus, because we know that when we make mistakes on the field, for me personally, and I would imagine for most of us, it's often because we got lazy mentally. We weren't focused on what we were supposed to be doing or focused on the right thing. Let me just break this down for you very, very fast. Preparation. I'm not going to go through those things. Corey talked about that great for us. But let me encourage you to think about this idea of focus as not just a one-shot thing, but kind of an amalgamation of these different ideas. Being present in the moment, having a positive state of mind, understanding where you are emotionally and finding that ideal place for you, keeping your composure, concentrating on the relevant pieces of information, right? Not the fact that you may have some cold Coca-Colas waiting for you after the game, but concentrating on the right things and then being very confident. That's kind of what focus is. So if you combine all of these things together that you see on your screen, your situational awareness is going to improve and you're going to be in great shape. Okay, so let's just watch a couple of plays real quick. Going to go through these fast to give you an idea of what this could look like on the football field. This first one's a little bit subtle, but let's see what happens. We've got 4 receivers down here to the bottom of the screen, 1 receiver up top. We're in a situation where it's 4th and 10. Remember, we talked about that. We'll see that here, 4th and 8 rather. Now watch the head linesman immediately move to the line to gain. We have a ball caught very tight to the line to gain. We've got a line judge who looks maybe a touch tentative, just looking for a little bit of help from the head linesman. And now we're going to see this coach's view one more time, and we'll watch what he does. Watch the head linesman at the end of this play, right? Get to the line to gain, plays dead. And as we look in our, it didn't show up. But what you would see on the wide angle is him coming across the field and really owning this spot. So again, just a very subtle example of an official who knew the situation, who worked in anticipation that that line to gain could be critical, and then did a great job of owning this situation where there's a million things that could have happened and that line to gain maybe not threatened at all, but because he was prepared for the things that are most relevant, did a great job of helping the crew make what could be a incorrect decision or make the correct decision indecisively look really, really good. So just one quick example. Let me show you one that's a little bit more, I would say, obvious. Right, and this is often what we think about when we talk about situational awareness. But wanted to show that first example, and now a more obvious one. We've got the game clock. So we've got a dead ball. We're short of the line to gain. The game clock is running down, and we sense this urgency that's going on. Watch the umpire right now. He's looking for the ball. We've got a lot of things going on, and ultimately, what's going to happen is Team A is not going to get the next snap off. And listen, we've all been in these situations where our emotions are running very high. You know, the cortisol's pumping and it's slowing our thinking, and we're trying to figure out what we're supposed to do next. We've all been there, and those are really, really hard. And the point of today and the point of this idea of situational awareness is really about how in these situations can we respond appropriately, but also efficiently so that we don't take away from a team's opportunity to do something that they would have been given to otherwise. Okay, so that's all we're going to talk about. But again, relative to situational awareness, again, want to just emphasize this idea that this is going to play out through all of our topics, right? Everything kind of centers around this idea of situational awareness. And all right, let's go back to Corey. He's going to talk to us a little bit about some player interaction things.
All right, thank you, Daniel. I mean, that really sets the stage for everything that we talk about when it comes to game management. You need to know what is going on around you, and great presentation, great way to start us off here. So the next thing we want to talk about is kind of that player interaction piece that we talked about at the beginning, because you know how you're interacting with the players throughout the game really goes a long way. I think, you know, we don't always have to be the bad guy out there. It's okay to strike up conversations with players, to help players up off the ground if needed. I think we see examples of that all the time. You know, that picture on the left there, that's probably of all the photos I have from my fishing career, this is probably one of my favorite, because it was just, this was during a media timeout, and number 4 here came in, and we were just chatting. I don't even remember what we were chatting about, but we were laughing. I think he was telling me about what his dad did. And then Brandon, I know the picture of him helping this UCF player up off the ground is one of his favorite memories too. And that's, you know, that's all from player interaction. And so, you know, how do we interact with them before, during the game? It can go a long way to help us effectively manage the game. You know, having a good rapport with those players out there will help you. It will help you each and every time. So start that process before we kick off. So if you're out there with that 90 minutes and you have, you know, we're going to have 30 minutes more time this, you know, this upcoming season, to utilize to make ourselves, better prepared visually, physically and mentally, but we can also, have maybe more of these types of conversations. So, center judges, are you talking to your center to let them know, hey, this is, my name's Mike. Pleasure to meet you. Just want to let we're going to be working together today. This is how I'm going to get out if I'm holding you up. Umpires, are you talking to your centers and your guards? Quarterbacks, referees, are you getting with your quarterbacks to introduce yourself? I like to get with receivers. I like to get with cornerbacks because I know that, go up and say, hey, Richard, I'm going to be watching your back all day. If you ever have it, anything that comes up you want to talk about, I'm back here. Come and talk to me at any time. I subscribe to the theory to don't let the first communication that you have with the player be bad news. And by bad news, I say, hey, got you for DPI. Hey, I got you for holding, uh, Mr. Left Guard. Set that rapport. I mean, obviously, you can never avoid all of those situations, but the ones that we can, let's try to do that. So, what you're doing is setting the foundation for the next 3 to 4 hours. How do you know who to talk to? That's part of your preparation going into the game. Know who your starting players are. Who are the players that are going to be on the field that you're going to be interacting with? So those are all, when you talk about player interaction, that's what we're thinking of. So you can better manage a game oftentimes by just talking to players versus throwing the flag. We've talked about it as preventive officiating. I know most of us have heard that term thrown around throughout the years, and that means, okay, how can we officiate the game without the use of our flag? So, some of the things that we can do that is, acknowledge a player when they avoid a foul. Don't just go and talk to them about, hey, I got you for that foul. And I give the example of targeting because obviously that has been such a big emphasis over the past few years that if you see a defender, say a safety's coming over, and instead of lighting a guy up, he lowers his target zone. He puts a shoulder into the belly of a receiver. Go up and say to him, hey, number 25, that is a great hit. That's exactly what we're looking for. Way to lower your target. That does two things. It lets them know, hey, this guy's watching me, but it also lets hey, we're gonna let you know when we see you do something good as well. And so, whatever position you work on the field, translate that to how could you incorporate that into your game management routine. Sometimes you have to talk to a player to let them know, hey, we are you're right on the edge of legality there. Hey, left tackle, you need to move up a little bit. You're kind of in that no man's land. Talking to the receivers, the slot backs, whatever. Maybe we have an offensive hold or a defensive hold situation that really didn't rise to a level of a foul, but I want to talk to that player and say, hey, watch what you're doing with your hands. Make sure you're not tugging on him. Something that, whatever the case may be, it allows those players to know, hey, we're watching, but we're just not going to throw the flag. We are going to work with you and try to give you as much opportunity as we can to avoid you making that mistake that requires us then to throw the flag. So let's get to a couple more videos here. Let's see, where are we at? So when does our pregame, or when does our situational awareness and game management start? Well, it starts right at the beginning. And so here's some video coming up here of things that happen before the game that we need to be aware of. And so obviously you can tell this is well before the game. The stands aren't filled up yet. This looks to be at the Swamp down in Gainesville. We have players here checking each other's face masks out to make sure they're legal. Hey, I like your face mask. No, you can't have my face mask. So, these are the types of scuffle that we need to be on the lookout for. And you'll see that, there's no officials yet in screen because, a lot of people spread out. So who is watching this type of action? Well, we'll see there is an official that, his antenna gets raised. There he is right there between those players. Like, man, something's going on over here. I better go check this out. And sure enough, he sees it escalate and he starts coming in to break that up. So we've got to be aware of these things at the beginning, as soon as we get on the field, because this can affect what happens the rest of the game if we don't effectively manage that pregame aspect. So keeping these players apart is paramount. We should have that buffer zone. We have 9 of us out there. When teams come out from the locker room, that's a great time to make sure that you at least have a presence. Have a line of officials here as this visiting team is coming onto the field to keep that buffer zone. I know that on our crew, if somebody sees part of the team coming out, they'll get on the 020 and say, hey, they're coming out. And we all kind of get over there to that side to keep that buffer. especially in stadiums where you don't have a lot of extra room. If we allow this type of interaction to go unchecked, it just sets bad blood for the rest of the game. So you can see there's one official in there with, you know, a few dozen players. So he's trying to do his best to get it out. But if we need to have more of a presence in that, you'll see there's another official. He sees something's going on. He's going to run in. So talk about this with your crew. I think that's something that we hit on almost every session, is to talk with your crewmates. How are we going to take care of this? You know, there are certain stadiums where both teams come out of the same tunnel. How are you going to officiate that tunnel? I know there's a lot of Pac-12 schools that are that way. I know, you know, around the country, there's a lot of teams that come out of the same tunnel. If it gets down to it and players just start to go at it, you know, as in this example, get a line of officials in between, and we're trying to break them up. You know, obviously you can see here we have multiple officials in here trying to keep these two teams apart to make sure that it does not escalate to something where we have to throw a flag. There are situations, however, that you do have to throw that flag because it's gone enough. I mean, there's only so much that you can do before we have to use all of the tools available to us. And you know, one of those is our flag, and we may have to use that. So try to keep these players, you know, separated. If they start to go out of it, obviously get out of the way. You know, we can't become Mills Lane in there and break up everything. But, you know, these are just, I wanted to play this as an example of, you know, our game management starts well before the game does. So be out there on the field, be vigilant, be present, letting these players know that, hey, we are in charge here. We are looking at everything, and that's how your game management begins from the get-go. So do we have any sense about the pregame stuff before we move on?
Yeah, one really good comment from Michael in the
Keep going,
chat.
Corey. I think we're doing well.
You know, one thing to emphasize, it's so important to confirm with game administration where teams will be entering and exiting the field so that we can manage that process, which you alluded to, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, use those game management personnel. They have information that we may not be privy to yet. They may have a rundown of what's going to happen. You know, one of the things that I'm really anal about is I like to get that rundown. When are teams coming out? When are they leaving the field to go back in the locker rooms? I like to know that so that we can better effectively manage the game. So let's move on here. I got another video I want to show you. This was from a week 2 game last year, and I think it really illustrates the idea of how can we effectively manage the game without throwing a flag. So we're going to watch the right defensive end for BYU. He comes in, makes a tackle, and then you know, it just, I remember deep watching this. I was like, what the heck was that just flew out of there? Well, you know, he came out of that tackle with the runner. In this case, he came out there with his shoe, and he gives it a good full chuck. I mean, thankfully he chucked it into his own bench. I think maybe he was just being kind, saying, hey, I know this isn't my shoe. This has got a University of Tennessee logo on it. Here, you guys can have it back. So how do we manage that? This is play 20 of the game. This is early in the game. Obviously, look, the referee sees that. I was like, man, what the hell was that? Did he just throw his shoe? And so he has to make a decision then. How do I manage this? Do I, you know, one option is obviously, you know, that's not allowed. Let's get a flag on the ground here. Let's give number 99 an unsportsmanlike conduct. So then he's at risk for disqualification if he does it again. Or the other option is how do we do this without a flag? Did the video freeze on me, or is it still going?
It's frozen on my end.
Okay, what is going on with our tech today?
There
Is it
you go.
rolling again now?
At least it switched frames anyway.
All right, let me see.
You got the end zone give up.
Let's try this again here. Sorry about this out there, everyone. Still nothing?
I have
It's
it playing
wrong.
on my end.
Yeah, it's going now.
Okay, good. You know, so you're going to see a couple different views of this, and obviously there's no polling or anything like that, but just look at this and, you know, how would you manage this? I thought that how we managed this was excellent. It took, you know, we didn't penalize the player for throwing the shoe, and we also didn't tell the quarterback, hey, we're not going to slow you down to get your shoe back on. The way this was handled, I thought, was spot on. It shows a great example of how to effectively manage a game without using the flag. So comments, questions out there, Daniel, what can you know, how does this play into what you had with situational awareness and all the other things we've talked about?
Corey, I think you made an excellent point that I want to just expound on a touch, and certainly if anybody else has something to contribute or spurs any thought, but the point is there isn't that we wouldn't be justified or couldn't justify a flag, right? And so we see that often in those unsportsmanlike situations where we could justify a flag and probably sell that to whoever we needed to sell it to. But in terms of game management, we have other tools available to us. And when we think about situational awareness, like you said, being early in the game, we've got a lot of football left to play, and trying to manage everybody's kind of, emotional levels, being visible and using our presence, our words, and just our demeanor to manage that situation rather than throwing flags. Man, I don't know that there's too many things in terms of player interaction that's a more critical skill for us to develop. But the point isn't that we can't use a flag, right? Nobody's saying that you'd be incorrect here, but we have a choice to make. And in terms of managing that game for all 60 minutes, if we can use our presence rather than getting the habit of, because once you draw that line, right, where we're going to have to start throwing flags for UNS, who knows what kind of door that's going to open for the rest of the game. So I just thought that was a really, really good point I wanted to highlight.
No, thank you. And thanks for starting up this video again. And Brandon, I want to kick it out to you because, this was really, the chat is asking, how was this handled? So maybe go through the process and how you came to, how you decided to manage a situation.
Yeah. Well, first of all, after the game, after deleting all the text messages that said, why didn't you throw unsportsmanlike conduct on this player? No, I think Daniel's spot on. Unsportsmanlike conduct foul would have been supported and is probably correct here. This is totally unnecessary. But here's what we did. All right. So we talked, the quarterback says, hey, he threw my shoe. And remember the old Austin Powers? Like, who throws a shoe? Or I don't remember what the exact Thanks for that. That was a fake laugh, Daniel. Appreciate it.
No, that was the best one you've had.
Yeah. So the quarterback is upset. And I said, hey, yeah, he threw your shoe. See, it's over there. Just go grab it. The clock's going to stop. Put your shoe back on and let's play football. And it felt weird at the time, basically because I had never seen that before. The coach was angry. I said, hey, just get him back in the game and let's just play football. Now, follow up on that is, what kind of communication haven't we talked about yet? The communication to player number 99 and the communication to player number 99's head coach, which was, coach, that was just silly. We don't want to make a mockery of the game by throwing other players' equipment out to the side. Just talk to him for us and just make sure he's with us tonight so that we have a really positive, experience for everybody playing the game, coaching the game, and watching the game in the stands and on TV. And I just feel like, Corey, if we maintain kind of that positive approach to what we're doing, almost proactive, I just feel like we get a lot more mileage out of, the things that we have to do that maybe aren't so positive, like call fouls and, unfortunately, assess penalties to players. I mean, do you agree?
I agree 100%. I think that in a situation like this and how, obviously you can think of many types of situations that could be handled in this type of approach. Our credibility takes a huge uptick because then the coaches, the players, the fans, the announcers, whoever watching it says, hey, these guys aren't out there just to, aha, I gotcha, looking for an opportunity to throw a flag. And it just really sets that tone. And it says to those players and the coaches especially, hey, these guys are out here. They just want to make sure the football game plays correctly. So great points. Great. Thank you for the insight on that play. From being 30 yards away, when I saw that thing going, I was like, man, what the hell was that was flying? But I loved how this was handled. So I know you got some other plays to go through with us, Brandon. So why don't you go ahead and kick off our next little segment?
Yeah. And so one of the questions in the chat that I'll just address, what happens if that with the clock running? Yeah. I mean, if we're late in a half, Daniel just broke down situational awareness level 1, 2, 3. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of different input into that. And if you deem that this player, I mean, if he does this and they're, and they're up, now you got to start making some decisions. Could you go delay of game? And then, if they're winning, the clock would go on the snap. There's a lot of different things we could talk about doing, do a lot of what ifs here. And that would be appropriate. I just think that for our crew in this situation, it was more setting the tone with, let's stop the game, let's get the quarterback's shoe back on, and let's play football. All right. So perfect. Okay, let's keep moving here. Appreciate everybody's engagement. Really nice attendance today. We are so grateful to be able to do this. You guys have no idea. So we are going to go to a little pump play action. All right, and we're going to have a poll. So this play is going to loop. We are going to have a poll down here. And we're going to talk about communicating with coaches. So we get a really nice call for running into the kicker, and we're not evaluating should this be running or should this be roughing, but I guess I will evaluate it. It's an excellent decision to go running into the kicker. You'll see some really good replays. And that loops. Let's talk about communication with coaches in what can be maybe not so confusing to us, but again, if we think about where the coaches are coming from, they're always planning ahead. They're super control freaks. They're not really thinking about penalty enforcement and where the ball is going to be next. That's our job. And it's our job to communicate effectively to them. And one of the ways to communicate effectively is to really, really know the rules, okay? So think about this. We've got, besides declining the penalty, which is always an option, what available enforcement options does the kicking team have for enforcement of this 5-yard penalty for running into the kicker? RNK is our abbreviation for running into the kicker, if that's a new acronym, I guess. Okay, so what are the options? Enforce from the previous spot only, enforce from the end of the kick only, or enforce from either the previous spot or the end of the kick. And again, we always have the option to decline the penalty. So I'm not leaving that out. I'm just talking about if they want to enforce these 5 yards, what are their options? And again, great decision to go running into the kicker by the referee and maybe even the center judge as well. 88 in the white jersey there. He's not punishing the kicker. He kind of runs through the kicking leg, spins the kicker to the ground. All the telltale signs for a really quality call for running into the kicker. And we talk about running versus roughing. It's not absolute, but a lot of times kicking leg is running and plant leg is roughing. But if contact is severe enough to the kicking leg that rises to the level of roughing, we can override those common guidelines. But in this case, excellent decision. And now we got to enforce this. Okay, so we'll just kind of let this keep looping. The polls are coming in, and we're evening out pretty good. I feel like the video's playing a little better. Maybe Corey, give me some feedback.
Yeah, the video's playing well on my end now. So
okay, good.
I don't see, there's no comments saying that it's not. So
okay, awesome.
Good.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, so we've got plenty of looks at this. Okay, so 56% said previous spot only, and 40% say we have options. And this is our issue. This is why it's so important to just never assume that communication happens. I think, Daniel, you taught me this. One of the worst assumptions relative to communication is that it actually happened. Did you teach me that, or was that somebody else?
I don't think that was me.
Oh, well, it should have been.
Right.
No, but it's great. Think about it. So one of the worst assumptions you can make about communication is that it actually happened. All right. So in this case, and we'll put the play up once again. Let's just talk through how we want to initiate this communication. So referees, sometimes this gets confusing. Sometimes it's like, God, which team do I ask? You're in the heat of the moment. You're really thinking about how good or maybe not so good your call was, whatever the case is. This is a great call. Here's a tip. If we're talking about roughing or running into the kicker and you got to ask a coach, just look at the color of the helmet of the punter and then go ask his coach, right? Because they're going to be the offended team. So they're going to be making the decision. All right. So this is the kicker has a green colored helmet on. We got to ask the green team head coach what he wants to do with this. We're going 5 yards, running into the kicker. Now, if we just stop there with our communication, that's incomplete, because you can't assume the coach knows all the options of the rules. We have to know that running into the kicker does not qualify for PSK enforcement. So unfortunately, for those that thought end of the kick was an option, it's not. Look in the penalty section of the rule. It's in Rule 6 or 9. Somebody will help me out. But the penalty section definitely and absolutely states it's a previous spot enforcement. Okay, so look, the head coach, he's the kicker's head coach. He's confused. First of all, he may want it to be roughing, which we understand, but it looks like he's gesturing down towards the other end of the field. He probably thinks this is a PSK foul, even if he doesn't know what PSK means. Hey, I want it from the end of the kick. So now we have to clearly communicate. And how do we clearly communicate? We listen. What does he want? What message is he trying to send us? All right, coach, this is previous spot enforcement only. You can accept it from the previous spot and replay the down, or you can decline it and Oklahoma will get the ball at the end of the kick. Okay, now look at what the coach is doing. He really was just buying time for his analytics people, okay? He took his headset off. He puts his headset back on. Hey, guys, do we want to replay fourth down or do we want to give them the ball at the end of the kick? Okay, we're talking. We are fine taking all this time because, the guys got to crunch their numbers. Special teams, defensive coordinators, they got to figure it out. Okay, we finally come to a conclusion, which is okay. We decline the penalty. And it's the receiving team's ball at where they, caught the kick because it was a fair catch. So, again, how do we communicate this, coach? The previous spot was the 36. We can go 5 yards from there and replay fourth down, or you can give the ball to Oklahoma at what looks to be about the plus 26, Oklahoma's 26-yard line. Or I'm sorry, minus 26. Oklahoma's 26-yard line. So want to be very simple, but the best thing to do in these situations is listen to what issue the coach is having in terms of understanding, what his available options are. If we just go over and say, coach, that's not PSK, guess what? Coaches don't know what PSK even means. Some of our officials don't know what PSK even means. Talk football terms, coach. You can either replay the down 5 yards from the previous spot. In that case, it'll be fourth and whatever it was. If it was 4th and 12, it'll be 4th and 7 from the previous spot. You can replay fourth down, or it's going to be their ball at where they caught the kick for a fair catch. All right. So just a really good example of seemingly simple play, but if we didn't communicate as effectively as this crew did that we just saw, it really could have become a mess. So I feel like that head coach was pretty appreciative of the explanation, got with his analytics people, got with his coordinators, made the decision on what would be the next best option for his team. So let me pause there for what other discussion and questions, guys, can we talk about?
Hey, Brandon, I got a question for you. I think, I couldn't agree more just in terms of communication, taking all of the other elements out of it, just when you're talking and trying to communicate with someone, that first step is really listening, especially when emotions are high, like they tend to be on the sideline of a football game. That's such a great point. This is what I was thinking about also. Speak to this a little bit, because when we're on a football field, especially as a referee, but all of us on the crew, really in a sense, we're an authority figure to the players and even to the coaches. So it's important that we demonstrate a degree of that, right? And confidence, which comes from that rules knowledge that you talked about and all of that stuff. But how do you manage, because I've seen you over the years develop really great relationships with coaches. And that's what we're really trying to do is it's a relationship. It's a working relationship, but that's what it is. How do you balance that line between being confident and owning your stuff, but at the same time, not coming across as arrogant or aloof? And so that's my question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, I'll be the first to say that we as officials have a way more to learn about what coaches are doing during the game than they have to learn about what we're doing. There's a big gap that we all need to continue to work on by going to practices, going to scrimmages, communicating. And so to me, communication, and I always have interactions with coaches that I wish I would have handled differently. And you learn from those. And Daniel, I know you probably have some really good examples that I appreciate that compliment, but I feel like maybe some of the not so good examples are coming next. So we'll just stop there. All right. But, so to me, it's purely empathy. I mean, what are these guys thinking? Put yourself in the mindset of a coach. what information does he want to know? He doesn't want to know that it's a PSK foul or it's not. He doesn't want to know about clean hands. He doesn't want to know all these intricate and fancy rules terms that we all talk in officiating. He wants to know what his options are purely from the standpoint of, if I accept the penalty, what's the down and distance next? If I decline the penalty, whose ball and where is it next? These guys are making unbelievable. They're calculating this, analytics on the fly to put their teams in the best position possible to win the game. It's all about win probability. It's all about maximizing their chance to win the next play. So if they feel like fourth down from the 41-yard line is better than giving the other team the ball at the 26, okay, they need to know those simple decision-making inputs, and we need to help them with that. I firmly believe we can do a much better job, all of us, in communicating those decision-making inputs, because that's just how the game is coached and really the game is ran today from a coaching perspective, And again, we got a lot more to learn about what decisions they're making so that we can communicate even better. So, Daniel, that's kind of where I've gone in terms of learning about how the game's coached and just thinking, hey, what kind of decision is he making? What inputs does he need to make that decision?
That's awesome. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions before we move on? We are going to go back to who? Corey?
Yep, I'll take another stab at some of this stuff, and that's a great play. And I think when you talk about game management, how you're communicating to the coaches, I know something that really hit my eye last season was how do coaches speak? They have a different vocabulary than what we use, and I think if we can learn to use more of their vocabulary, that's going to go a long way. So let's kind of switch gears, and we'll continue this discussion. I love the discussion I see going on in the chat. You guys have a lot of your, you go back and forth with rulings, and I like that. That's exactly what this is meant to be. It's meant to be a forum for everybody. So, another aspect that we talk about often with game management is how you manage the clock. And so it's very critical that we get the clock correct, and it falls on every one of us. If you have a 10-person crew, if you have a 7-person crew, whatever the case may be, we all are in charge of that. So obviously at the collegiate level, the side judge and field judge are specifically tasked to handle that clock, but everybody does play a part in that. So this next play, we are going to have a poll for you guys and gals. And this is a pretend play. I know Brandon and Tuta, they love their pretend play, so I'm starting to come on board with this. So, but pretend on this play that you're about to see that Oklahoma is out of timeouts, and should Oklahoma incur a 10-second runoff. So we're going to watch this video. It's going to loop, I think, 3 times for y'all to look at before we'll stop us. So make sure you get your votes in on this one in a timely fashion. Your options here are yes, because the delay game causes the clock to stop. Yes, all delay game fouls require a 10-second runoff. No, this is a pre-snap foul. Or no, the clock is not under 1 minute. So we'll watch this a couple times. Here comes a back judge. Simple delay game. We usually don't talk about that. So there's your first view. We'll see it a couple more times to get your votes in. And you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with game management? Boy, this is just a delay a game foul. What's the big deal here? Well, you have to be aware of the situation around you. So I think you're going to get one last look at this play. We'll give it to you one more time here. Then I will close the poll here in about 5 or 6 seconds. So take one last look at this. Obviously we have to be aware of the clock when we get under 2 minutes and a half, when we get under 1 minute and a half, because there's going to be ramifications. So that's going to be your last look. So last call for votes. And we'll go ahead and end that poll because it looks to be pretty split. We'll let these last few votes come in. All right, let's 47% yes, the foul for delay game causes the clock to stop with less than a minute remaining, and no, the clock is not under 1 minute. So we have to decide, which is it? Is it under a minute or is it not under a minute? And so we have to have that point of reference to know, when did this foul occur? Because it has to be under 1 minute for us to have that 10-second runoff. So, we're going to look at this end zone play, and we're talking about game management. When these plays shut down right as they start, everybody can have a chance to manage this game. And you'll see a couple different indications here. This is a rivalry type game. And so game management really kind of takes an extra importance, because tempers are heated. They don't like one another. So I love, the umpire here, he sees that these players are going after, he steps right into that, says, hey, we're play's over. Let's get back. We see up there the tackle and the defensive end, they're still engaged. We got to be aware of that type of stuff, because if we let that go, then it just has game management impact the rest of the way. So let's go back to how this play is setting up. So look at the clock here, 102, 2 seconds on the play clock. So when the play clock expires, it's at 0, and the game clock is at 1 minute. So, but a lot of clock operators, they're going to keep it going. It's a live clock. They're not going to be, have an itchy trigger finger. Looking at before the play starts, we're at 1:35. So if you have clock responsibility, so if you're a side judge, field judge, or even back judge in this case, looking at that and then see how does that relate up to the play clock, because we need to know that. And that, that should be part of your pre-snap routine. If you are a deep official, or if you have clock responsibility, see how those match up. Because right now, there should be, as it looks like we should have a second runoff. And so it looked like the video stopped prematurely there. I apologize about this, everyone. It looked like that play clock stopped the game clock stopped afterwards. So we need to then go back and make sure that we do not assess a 10-second runoff, because we shouldn't have one in this situation. So it talks about your game awareness. Make sure that how is everything lining up, because if we were to put a 10-second runoff in this type of situation, that wouldn't be correct. And so a quick conversation. I know that, this may come as a shock to referees when you get this information, but that's where, you take the information, turn on, make an announcement. This is one of those announcements you may not practice all the time, but that's why you stand in front of that mirror. So any comments on this one from out there in the chat?
Yeah, Corey, what about, everybody wants to know about replays involvement. So the clock in this case is not reviewable. All right. The clock has to expire. That clock has to expire at the end of a quarter to be officially reviewable. But administrative aspects of the game we can collaborate on through the O2O. So, Corey, give me your opinion. I mean, is this something that replay folks, and hopefully they're on, can I see Tony Bates is on, tell us, would you expect in terms of our preparation with our replay crew that they would help us make sure we do not administer an incorrect 10-second runoff here?
Well, I certainly would hope so, especially through the collaboration process. Yes, maybe we don't have to get to the point of a stoppage, but let's say that, we don't catch this and we do run 10 seconds off. While it's not specifically reviewable, could they jump in under that, major error type of clause, to say, hey, we are unfairly taking away 10 seconds from this team, or, burning a timeout for them. I think that they would be justified in jumping in, but I guess I would defer to what the replay folks would have to say. But I don't know, Brandon, what is your opinion, or Tuta or Daniel, what do you think? Do you think that they would be justified in coming in with a stoppage?
Right. Yeah, I'll go first and then the guys can chime in. I absolutely think so. And we've got some good good feedback here from Tony and Carl Gertz, some of the guys in our program who would appreciate being on. Absolutely. They're saying use the O2O, get this right. We've got tools that by rule we can use to administrate the game properly. Maybe we wouldn't have done that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but now we do. And it's actually codified that we can use those tools to get the game right, to get the play right. Now, look, we don't want to use those tools, right, Corey and Daniel? I mean, Daniel, we want, as deep officials, we want you guys owning the clock, communicating clearly, and we should never need replay help on something like this, even though it is somewhat complex. What would you say, Daniel? How are you working this?
Yeah, I don't have anything unique to offer. I think you guys are dead on. Just would also highlight what an incredible example of situational awareness, right? From a side judge who's not responsible for delay of game, not working the play clock, just to have that those are those inputs that he's processing and just putting together, recognizing the back judge has a flag, he's working the game clock. That just one of the better examples you'll see, I think, of taking situational awareness and applying it in such a way that you just save the crew what could potentially be a huge embarrassment. So I think that's we're pointing out, because all of these things can start to be almost feel like minutia, but when we aren't on top of those, and most of the time we see non-examples, is when the bad stuff's happened. So really good play to look at and learn from.
Yeah, and let me add something. We had a really good question. The question is basically talking about our mechanics for calling delay of game from the back judge. So Daniel, just humor us for a second. What is your mechanic in terms? You see zeros, you find the snap. How do you work that? And then let me bounce off that after you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, not a secret for most of us. We're going to watch the play clock hit zero. Then we're going to adjust our eyes from the play clock to find the ball. And then if the ball is still on the ground, we're going to have a flag for delay of game. If it's in the process of being snapped or moves as soon as we get there, we'll let the play go. One thing you want to keep in mind that was always incredible learning moment for me, I'll never forget. I know Corey's mentioned Terrence Miles and how supportive and helpful he was for him. But I'll never forget him talking to us about the distance of the game clock to the ball changes on some fields. So how you make that consistent. So remember, if you've got a clock really close to the field, adjusting your eyes from the clock to the ball may go super fast. Whereas in a stadium like this, where the game clocks, or the play clock rather, is high up in the scoreboard, adjusting your eyes takes a little bit longer, but you need to be consistent from game to game. So it's just about that, effectively just a 1 second pause from play clock hitting zero to finding the ball.
Okay, perfect. So that's the mechanic. We have a lot of mechanics and processes in officiating that aren't spontaneous. They don't just happen absolutely. Daniel just explained the one with delay of game. So I think we're getting a little pushback or some questions around, well, by the time we actually call delay of game, the clock, I mean, if we're going to execute that mechanic that Daniel just laid out, the clock's really under a minute. Okay, fine. But the time the foul occurred, the time the play clock expired, if we're syncing up these clocks properly with our vision, like Corey on this play did, and Corey, let's just throw you out there, man. This was unbelievable work by you on the field. If we're doing that properly, we would want to reset that game clock back to a minute, because that is when the play clock expired. Now, if this was 13 minutes to go in the first quarter, we wouldn't care about that. We have our 5 and 5 axiom, but it's not. It's at a minute to go in the second quarter. We're at the end of a half. Timing rules really get more restrictive the more we get down towards the 2-minute portion of the half. So, let's not confuse the mechanic we use to be consistent calling delay of game with the administrative aspect of not, charging the offense here with what would be a very incorrect 10-second runoff. Corey, do you agree with that?
I agree. I mean, yes, this is just, right place, right time, but this was part of my pre-snap routine that I always, when I look to that game clock, I also see, okay, how does it relate to the play clock? And it's just something that I've always done, and I've never had to ever use it until now, or until this play came up. And I agree with you 100% that mechanic is there so that we don't have itchy trigger fingers on delay a game, because we don't want that. If we can give them that extra tick, but at the same time, if we can make sure that the timing is correct with that, and like you said, if it's 13 minutes to go in the second quarter, who cares? But when we get into these time critical types of situations, that's where we want to make sure that our clock management is spot on, because there are certain rules that come into effect, under 2 minutes, under 1 minute, that wouldn't normally come into effect at other parts of the game. So good discussion. Keep it coming. That's exactly what we like to see on this. And so we'll go to another video to talk about, to further emphasize game management. And it kind of goes in along the lines with the delay of games. There's actually going to be one on here, but what happens when we have those type of fouls? I'm going to show you an example of an illegal substitution foul on defense and a delay game where you have that foul, but you have a timeout at the same time. So this game here, the defense, they had 13 out there, which, when you see 13 players out there and you're counting defense, your mind starts to scramble. And so, obviously all three deep officials, you're involved with that counting process. In this play, we did have all three down. But then, okay, so we have a foul, we have flags down. But then, as often happens, coaches see this right about the time that our flags are going into the air, and they want to call a timeout. So, what happened first? Should we really get into that? We subscribe to the philosophy that no, if it comes about at it or about the same time, we want to give that coach a timeout. You can see the line judge here coming in, signaling, hey, I have a timeout by West Virginia. So yes, those happen about the same time. We're going to pick up that flag and charge the team with a timeout. And why do we do that? Why do we err on the side of giving a timeout? Because frankly, those timeouts are more of a precious commodity than these 5 yards would be. I mean, they only get 3 per half, and that they want to save those for critical times. And a punt, early in the game is definitely not one of those. Another example here, we have a late game field goal coming up. The game's on the line. It's tie game with under 2 minutes to go. We're going to see here comes a foul for delay of game, but the coach is going to want to call a timeout. So do we give this? My video freeze again. What is going on here?
It's playing, Corey. It's
Oh, it
playing.
is? Okay. I'm glad it's playing on your end. What do we want to do here? So we see the back judge coming in, but Oklahoma said, hey, I want to have a timeout. And that's fine. Late in the game like this, I'm sure that's the last thing they want to, they like that timeout. But in this situation, that's exactly what they want. And so one thing from a game manager's perspective here, make sure you're getting that information to the referee before he starts that announcement so that we don't have to have that pause, kind of unravel the mess and then go from there. So, when you're looking at these types of situations, make sure that it's okay to give that team a timeout versus assessing the penalty, even if that penalty clearly came before the timeout was called. So, Tuta, is there anything you'd like to add on this one?
No, man. No, I'm just sitting, listening, and learning, soaking it all up.
Let me add something. I'm never short on words for these kinds of things. I think it's important when we make these announcements, Tuta, as referees, our phrasing is accurate. So if we're going to announce and award the timeout, we're going to charge the timeout to avoid the delay of game. I feel like it's important not to actually use the words delay of game because it almost sets us up for a little bit of criticism. So you maybe give me your announcement, but what I like to, instead of saying, there's no foul for delay of game, I'd rather say something like before the play clock expired, just as a way to position the information in such a way that is congruent with how we're administering the game. You follow me there?
No, I'm with you. And you actually gave me that good critique last year. I had one similar to that. And I said there is no foul for delay of game prior to the flag or whatever I said. I don't even remember what I said. And you told me maybe not say foul for delay of game, maybe just say prior to the play clock expiring. So yeah, no, that's really good. I agree with that.
All right, good discussion. That's exactly why we have, four folks on here, is to keep this, to keep the discussion going, because there's so many aspects to game management. So let's go on to our next play here, and I got a poll that goes along with this one, and this is just going to be one of your favorites, the true false. And so you're going to watch a play here, and are you going to agree or disagree that the line of scrimmage official was correct in winding the clock at the end of this play? So, part of our game awareness, it really kicks, or our game management really kicks into high gear in late in the game types of situations, late in the half types of situations. So watch this play. It's going to loop for you 2 or 3 times, get your vote in, and you're asking, are you agreeing with the fact that this official ruled the runner to be inbound? So this is late in the fourth quarter. I think there's 1:45 remaining in the game. The offense is down. They're trying to get a score to either tie or go ahead. I can't remember how much they're down at this point. We'll see that here in a little bit, but get your votes in. You're going to get one more look at this, and then we will close the poll down. Looks like the numbers are starting to slow down. Oh, here we go. We got a good rush. It's fun, you know, you guys don't get to see it from our end, but to see these numbers just change all the time. We started with 80-20, now it's getting closer to 60-40. So here, this is going to be one of your last views. This will be your last view, I believe. So after this one's done, we'll give you a few seconds to get those votes in. Things are starting to slow down here numbers-wise, so I think we're okay to end this. All right, let's go ahead and end this. 61% of you thought that he was correct, and 38% of you thought that you were false. So let's go at this from a game management. Look, a minute 45, offense is down by 3, so they need at least a field goal. We're in the fourth quarter. They've got 75 yards to go. This is 1st and 10, so this is obviously right after that field goal that we just watched a little bit ago. Team needs to get down. They need to score, or the game's going to be over. So time is crucial, is critical to the offensive team. They have no timeouts left. And this player, once he gets the ball, you know he's going to try to get out of bounds. Coaches, players on his side, and they're going to be encouraging, get out of bounds, get out of bounds. While we want to recognize that and be aware with that, they still have to achieve being out of bounds. Now, if there's ever any question, ever any doubt, I think we want to go with it and kind of give them the benefit of the doubt that yes, they did get out of bounds, but he still has to get there. And in this situation, you know, line judge comes down, he's got a great look at this, great viewpoint. He's looking exactly where he should, and he makes a ruling that this player was still in bounds. And so we're going to see a great replay here from the sky cam. This going to show that this was without a doubt the correct call, because he's attempting to get out of bounds, but he doesn't. We still have to, you know, we have to be aware of the player's intentions and what they want to do, but they still have to achieve it, because we don't want to unfairly award an advantage to the offense or any team in this situation when it's not warranted. So we can see right here, the hand is down, the foot is almost down, but he's not down by rule. It's a hand or a foot. He's still okay, but then the first thing to come down in bounds is that right elbow. Now, talk about this from a replay perspective. Could replay get involved? Absolutely. Obviously, this is probably going to be a hurry-up type of situation. I'm not aware if replay got involved with this play or not, but they definitely could, because they could say, hey, he's out of bounds. I think it could be reviewable in this aspect. You know, what type of discussion do we have from a replay point of view, Brandon?
Well, I mean, look, let me build this up. We're seeing a lot of conversation in the chat. If he's trying to get out of bounds, just give it to him. I mean, we have to be accurate. You know, I mean, if we put this player out of bounds and he clearly wasn't, the right knee's down. That's why line of scrimmage officials practice these spots and being so accurate on these things all throughout the game, because when the situation matters most like this, it would be so unfair to the defense just to put this player out of bounds. So unfair. All right. So what's reviewable? I mean, help us out, Carl, Tony, you guys. I don't really think if we improperly award him out of bounds, we're stuck with that, because we're not. How much time would we take off? That's not really a reviewable situation. Even administratively collaborative through the O2O, we really couldn't do much with that. That's just really an incorrect judgment. If let's say he did get out of bounds and we didn't give him out of bounds, I guess that's where we could administratively collaborate through the O2O and say, hey, he was out of bounds, put the clock back to this. But again, can we stop talking about relying on replay so much? We love those guys. They're there for tight plays. This is a routine play for the line of scrimmage people. They got to get this spot. They got to be so accurate. And somebody also said in the chat, well, his forward progress is stopped. Exactly. If you want to rule forward progress, be my guest with the guy pulling on his leg. But guess what? That's a running clock, because forward progress is stopped in bounds. You know, so Corey, in the case where we rule him, if we would have put him out of bounds and he should have been ruled inbounds, there's really nothing we can do replay wise, because there's just really we're not under a minute for any 10-second runoff ramification. You know, there's just really nothing we can do other than get better, honestly.
Correct. But if we rule him inbounds like we do here, but we have indisputable visual evidence that he is out of bounds, then replay could get involved with that, correct?
Yeah, it's not reviewable. It's not in terms of a formal stoppage, because again, The clock has to go to 0. So
Right.
now, if the line to gain was involved and we missed the spot relative to the line to gain, then we could reset the clock out of replay with a reversal. But just the clock here purely is not reviewable by rule because it didn't expire at the end of a quarter with all the other qualifications that needs to be met. So, but I agree with you. If he was actually out of bounds and we didn't award him, we could administratively collaborate through the O2O, which is allowed by rule.
Perfect. Great discussion. And, I think, Brandon, you got a couple more plays to run through us there, so I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. So we're going to keep rolling. So I think we're going to layer over the top. Corey set that up really, really well. Let's layer over the top of end of game clocks. And now we're going to add in communication with coaches. Okay. So check out the situation here. Video is going to come up. Check out the situation. We're late in the first half, second quarter, 43 seconds. It's 2nd and 4. 2nd and 4, 43 seconds to go in the second quarter. Who's on offense? Utah. Utah's in red. And now those little white rectangles down at the bottom of the TV program feed indicate that they have all 3 timeouts. Oh, here we go. We're going to throw a pass out to the side zone, and we have another line of scrimmage decision to make. Here's the deal. Debate this and judge for yourself how you would rule this. What kind of difference is this from the last play? Obviously, there's no body part down in bounds here other than a hand or a foot like we saw in the last play with the right knee. But there is a case to be made about forward progress, and I'm not going to say what's right or wrong. We're basically just going to work this play based on how it was ruled, okay? One thing we do know is we can't give him the 10 for forward progress, which the ball is about at the 10 there. We can't give him that and also say that he's out of bounds. I mean, it's, think about that. We can't give forward progress and also give a stop clock. If we're going to say forward progress inbounds and then also give him out of bounds, that's really having it both ways. And again, unfair to the defense. Now, if you want to say he was fighting for out of bounds and just give him out of bounds, that's fine. But then the spot's not at the 10. Okay. So the line judge is killing the clock. Why? Line judge is killing the clock because he's ruling first down, forward progress in bounds. Look at where he's putting his foot. He's marking the spot. Really good mechanics by the line judge. Watching all these players out of bounds. Field judge comes up. Really good game management mechanics with your vision. All right. So we see what happens here. Okay. Again, we're ruling forward progress. Now we got to communicate. Referee, get over there and figure out the ruling. And, we get the quarterback's attention here and we say, hey, we're going on the ready for play. Forward progress was inbounds. We're going on the ready for play. These poor quarterbacks, he's trying to get the play from his sideline. A lot of things going through his mind. There's 35 seconds left. Oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? So if we look back on how this play started, look at where team A is. The offense is on that side and the play is going to end on the far side. How good can we be on the field with our communication? This play tests that, especially with the ruling of forward progress in bounds. All right. So we're going to, go through. We actually restart the clock like we told the quarterback we were going to do. We can't wait too long. That would be unfair to the defense. The clock is rolling and now it stops because the coach came, running down the sideline and called timeout. Okay, so here's the result, and then we'll go back and work through the process again. The crew they get together and decide, okay, we're going to charge the offense a timeout, and basically, we're going to reset the clock to 33 seconds. Okay, so we decide to reset the clock to 33, and we'll go back and look at how this all unfolded, but, we just had to kind of make a judgment there. Now, how good can we be communicating? That's really the thing. Look at what happens process-wise on this play. The headline judge is at the bottom of the screen. He's going to have to go down to the 10-yard line and help with a cross-field spot if the line judge needs it. Line judge didn't really need it on this play, okay? It wasn't really classic cross-field mechanics, but he was there. We allow the coach, I know the coach's box stops at the team box, the 25, but we allow the coach to come all the way down here and call timeout at any point during the game. He can violate the team box rule, all these different things. He can come down and call timeout and get our attention. So basically what happened here is, we did our best, maybe not our best. We could have done better to communicate. The coach didn't realize that the clock was going to start on the ready for play. all our efforts, we did our best, so we just made a judgment, we being the crew on the field, that, what's fair here is that they have all 3 timeouts. They've executed a strategy of saving their timeouts to the end of the half, manage the football game, reset the clock. If the coach would have known all the facts in this compressed amount of time, he would have called timeout, reset the clock to 33, seemed like a good compromise. And honestly, the coach was about to go ballistic that he didn't know the clock was going to go on the ready. And so once the crew told him, look, we know you have 3 timeouts. Your obvious intent here is to manage this game at the end of the half and score. We're going to reset it to 33. He said, that's fair. I appreciate that. That's fair. And then was the defensive coach happy with that? Maybe not. But again, we just want to be very, very consistent and communicate how consistent we're going to be in these aspects of managing the clock. So, Tuta as a side judge, we talked about a little bit in the deep wing mechanics. How would you have handled this play to help the crew with the clock and then, just really execute the communication in what is really a compressed time frame? Because the team's going to hurry. The team's going to hurry to the line to try to snap it. So we got to be in position to officiate.
Right. So when the play is over, the first thing, if I'm the side judge, which way was the side judge, at the top or the bottom?
Side judge would be at the bottom in this case with the team A sideline.
Okay, good. So if I was the side judge, then I would not necessarily have an awareness of what the result of the play is, whether we're going to wind, whether we're going to stop. But I would know at the end of the play, there was 35 seconds on the clock. So I know that for a fact, and I have that locked into my head. So then once we wind the clock back up, I know it's 33. I mean, I know it's winding down now. It's 27 when we stop it again. So I would come and get into whatever discussion we're having. I would notice that the coach is upset. Referees go and talk to the coach. Well, I'm going to mosey my way on down there. And honestly, I probably would have asked us to put it back to 35 because that's where it was at the end of the play. Right. But I would have that awareness of what the clock was at the end of the play because I have that awareness at the end of every play, which is what we talked about. What was that, Thursday, whatever day that was. And then I will come and get in on that conversation and just make sure that we know, well, the clock was at 35 when it was dead. So if we're going to pretend that he would have called his timeout had he known, and he wouldn't have lost any time, then I would say we probably should put it on 35. Then, I mean, obviously, if we go to 33, it is what it is. But yeah. I would know for a fact that it was 35 at the end of the play.
Yeah, and so I just really appreciate that. And it basically validates everything you talked about the other night with deep wing mechanics. What process steps do you take through every play, pre-snap routine, post-snap routine, between dead ball periods, all these different things. And this is why we do that. It just doesn't happen. You can't just think, I'm just going to be on the field and figure out what the best time was, right? I mean,
right. No, you can't do that.
It has to be a habit. And missing the clock, if we would have never reset the clock here, which would have been a travesty to the game, unfortunately. Travesty's a little strong, but you know what I'm trying to say. It would have been unfair to the offense. That wouldn't have been a mistake that just happened on this play. That would have been a mistake that was really built as a bad habit for all 8 members of this officiating crew. So just think about how important it is to build habits, play in and play out, that can result in very, very adequate game management. I agree with you. If we could have gone back to 35, that would have been perfect here. We got it to 33. Everybody was pleased. Let's play football. You got you use your timeout. Good job by Utah in this case, hanging on to all 3 timeouts. That's a strategy that they should really be rewarded for. So what other discussion or questions is coming through?
There's just a lot of talk about, the communication, which I think you've hit on, and, what are we giving to the teams? What are we giving to one another? So I think you guys have really covered this really, really well.
I think, another element of just looking to elevate our situational awareness and looking to elevate our game management are, those officials at the bottom of the screen. I don't know. The officials at the bottom of the screen really getting involved and having an awareness that we've got a first down, but catching either through the O2O or through the physical signals of the line judge and the referee that we're going to wind the clock, and then the head line judge really working to communicate that to the coach. Just as a crew, all of us having an awareness of not only the situation with the clock, but what we're ruling on the field, and then how we can effectively communicate that, maybe can help us out in that situation. Like Brandon said, crew did everything here to communicate that to the coach. And sometimes he's just not thinking about us. He's thinking about his next play. And we talked about all the things going on in his mind, but just taking that crew ownership of communicating what we're ruling, even if we're not the ruling official, we may have the best proximity to the coach.
Yeah. I mean, really good. I just kind of got through the chat. Just so you know, it's hard to keep up with the chat and run these plays, but I just kind of got through some really good discussion on the line judge. We don't do double signals anymore, especially we don't do double signals at all during the game, quite frankly. When time is of the essence, when the ball is dead and we're making our dead ball ruling, if that causes the clock to stop, we kill the clock. So that, we try to just be as precise as we possibly can. So appreciate that conversation going on. And I just wanted to reiterate that in case people aren't following the chat.
One thing I want to toss out there, because this one just came up and I thought was a good point, is, going along the lines of situational awareness, on the field, we should know, okay, we're at the end of the half, 40 seconds. Team A has all 3 timeouts. So who is looking to that head coach to look for a timeout? I know in basketball officiating, you're always looking to that bench for that quick timeout. In these types of situations as well, deep officials, look down that sideline, because our line of scrimmage guys, they may still be working the spot. You can look back to that head coach and find that timeout. I mean, obviously this may have not played out that way in this situation, but oftentimes it can. So, is that something that you're preparing for going into this play? Say, okay, be looking for that timeout. Have you talked to the coach pregame about how you expect him to come and talk to you about a timeout? So just another aspect of situational awareness to be aware of.
Yeah, great point. Next play.
I think we're going to Tuta for the next play to wrap us up.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought there was something else going on before that.
Do you have one more, Brandon? Or is that?
No, man, you guys let me off easy today. Only 2 plays. I maybe hogged all the airtime, but I only got
you did.
plays,
You definitely hogged the airtime.
Go Tuta.
No truer statement has been spoken. All right, here we go. To start the play, and you know what? I should have put a poll up for this play, but whatever. I'll give myself a break. So let's set the scene. And first of all, thanks. We got this play sent in by one of our viewers. I don't know what you call viewer, participant, whatever word works best there. Last play of the game. Offense is down 20-13. Clock expires on this play. So we talked about situational awareness. We talked about game management. And we see some body language. We saw a close play in the end zone. We saw a flag on the ground. One team thinks they won. One team, well, not won, but maybe has a chance to tie the game. One team says no. We had some kind of report going into the referee. So now we have another signal and more discussion. So obviously we have a situation where we could help as a crew. And I think that's the main takeaway for me when watching this video. And we can get into the different elements as we have a discussion. And I guess I'll get into, I guess I'll get sort of preachy a little bit. If we look at this play and we say, damn, the field judge screwed that play up. Well, that's really not what I see when I look at a play like this. What I look at when I see a play like this is, hold on, the play went off. The field judge really, by body language and just by what happened on the play, needs help. First of all, this is the ultimate play of the game. This can determine if a team wins, if a team loses, if a team, whatever. I don't know all of the situations of the standings and everything, but this could be an extremely important play. Field judge has a flag on the ground. what can we do as a crew to help our crewmate out? When we're in pregame, I don't think any of us would sit in pregame and say, well, on the last play of the game, Jimmy, you got it all by yourself. I don't care if you screw it up. I don't care what happens. It's all on you. What can we do to help our fellow official out to get this play right? And if we look at if we saw the original play, it looked like the receiver's foot, maybe his right foot, was out of bounds. And we also had a flag on the ground. So we know he has a flag for maybe pass interference or something. So as a crewmate, the first thing I would do, come over there, hey, Jimmy. And I would not ask him what you got, because you can look at him and you can tell he does not know what he has. And I'm not beating up on the official at all, because I've been there. In fact, I was there last year. I was totally froze up on the plate because I didn't know what the hell I had, because just things, my brain locked up. And that happens. So just come on over. Hey, man, you have pass interference, right? And now he can stop and he can say, yeah, I do have pass interference. So they can get to the next point of talking about what the result of the play is. Because remember, we always have to have a result of a play. We can't just move on without knowing the result of the play. And I don't know if he knew the result of the play until he got to the referee and started reporting. And I'm sure whatever came out was incoherent. Let's just be for real, because, I mean, your brain is swimming at this point in time. So come over, help your crewmate out. Let's make sure we get to the result of the play before you let him go all the way to the referee and start reporting and talking about other stuff. And now we get into a situation where we don't know what's going on the field. So just from a situational awareness standpoint, from a game management standpoint, how can we work together as a crew to get this play right? This is not on one person. This is on the entire crew. So maybe Daniel, I'll shoot it to you as a back judge. What could you do to help out if I'm the field judge and you see me and you've seen my look plenty times on the field, and you say, man, this dude needs some help? What can you do as a back judge in this situation?
Man, I think you just made a great point. That was awesome. I've never really thought about that, to be honest with you. I don't think, Tuta, in the sense of, I'll get to your question, but the point I wanted to highlight was, we've been there to where things blow up and we're swimming, right? We're the ones trying to catch up and figure it out. But we've also been the others where we're on the crew, and then our crewmate is the one who's got everything blowing up around them late in the game, and they're swimming and trying to figure out. And we're sitting back like, man, what in the world is wrong with this dude? Just tell us what you got, right? Annoyed or frustrated, maybe after the, wow, let's take ownership as a crew, and let's take ownership of helping him get his thoughts collected. Because I can distinctly remember even recently being frustrated with the lack of communication from a crewmate in a situation that I was involved in. And the learning point here in all of this is, let's take ownership of helping that person slow their heart rate, process what they see, because you're absolutely right. As a back judge, I can just hang out there on the end line and be like, best of luck, guys. I hope you get this right. Or I can come in and say exactly what you said. I don't have anything unique to offer. I think what you said is perfect. Okay, you've got pass interference, correct? Right? That affirmative statement, you have pass interference, okay? And then hopefully that gets the wheels turning, and now we have a progression of thought. Okay, yeah, he pushed him, the ball was in the air, so that's why I threw my flag. Okay, what's next? Do we have possession? We could say, did the ball hit the ground? Okay, the ball didn't hit the ground. Okay, did he get a body part in bounds? Yeah, he got a body part in bounds. So the result of the play is a catch. Yeah, and he was in the end zone. Yeah, so we have a touchdown. So those affirmative statements that just get those thoughts rolling and kind of get the wheels greased a little bit is what I think would be the best thing we can do. But yeah, man, it's our job.
And I think as the line judge is coming up, he probably sees that foot out of bounds prior to the process of the catch being completed. And that's why I wanted to get into, you helping from a back judge perspective. If I'm the line judge, when I come up to my man, I just can't stress enough. Don't say what you have. What do you got? he does not know what he has because he has a foul and he has a catch, no catch. And you can see he's just looking for help. So first of all, let's get to the easy part. He got the foul. We know that because he has his flag on the ground. Get that information to him. Then he can say, yeah. And he can slow down like Daniel, like you said, slow your heart rate down. And then he can start thinking about the catch, no catch. And if he still doesn't have a clue, then you can tell him, I have the right foot out of bounds before the player completed the catch. And that may jog his memory as well. But we need to do all of that before he gets to the referee. Because honestly, by the time he got to the referee, he changed his mind probably 3 or 4 times. But we need to get that situation ironed out before we even get to the point where we're talking to the referee. And now we have a situation, especially if we're in a game with no instant replay, well, now we're incorrectly ruling on a play. And if we think that it's all up to the field judge to get it right, let's see what happens on Monday when we get a call from the supervisor and the entire crew is getting questions and wondering, why didn't we get this right? It's not one person that has to get it right. Yeah, he's the covering official, but we all got to come in there and do whatever we can. I don't know. Sometimes these discussions are hard. These conversations are hard, but we have to figure out what is the most effective way that I can get my man on the right page so that we can get this play right.
Hey, Tuta, good play, good breakdown. I really appreciate the submission from the community. Can we just all start to agree that, the whole mindset that some take in officiating of, I'm just going to stay under the radar and stay out of trouble, and I'm not going to trouble. Well, in this play, trouble. Get involved. Help your fellow official out. We've had so many talks about this. Those that just want to stay back and just stay out of the way. And then plays like this happen. And like you said, the whole crew is at risk of sitting down next week. So there's, at some point, we've all got to come to an agreement that says, let's get rid of that mindset. Let's go work the game. If I'm clearly not involved in the play, yeah, I'm not going to come in and muddy the waters, but get involved. Help your fellow crewmates out. Do your job, own your position, and then go help somebody else do theirs. I think we'd just all be a lot better off and have a higher chance of reaching that goal that we all set of working on all our plays and getting them right.
Brandon, you bring up a good point. Just watching this video play over and over, this looks to me to be a 7-person crew. And as this discussion is going on, there's 4 officials not doing a damn thing. We got the back judge and the side judge just kind of having a chit chat in the end zone when there's players around this conference, headlinesman across the way. He could have kind of get these players away from this conference, look like you're actively managing the game. Those four officials that aren't involved, they just look like, hey, I hope they got it right. I'm pulling for these guys, but we all are there collectively, and we all should take pride in the product that we put out there and how it plays out. And when you sit back and just, hey, I hope field judge, I hope he nailed this one, and then we just sit back and do nothing, I think that it's really detrimental to the crew. So I think you bring up great point there.
So yeah, let's bring it from pregame to the field. We all talk. We know we have pregame heroes all the time. Everybody's in pregame, the greatest official in the history of the game. Then we get to the field. Let's bring what we talk about in pregame and bring it to the field. Anything else on this play?
No, I just think, we gave a shout out to Ken Rivera and Phil Laurie. I feel like I can almost they're like twisting in their chairs right now, I think, because there's certain types of officials that I assume they want to assign to games. And it's not, just like we talked about, it's not those that just stay back and don't get involved when the opportunity is there to do so to help a fellow official. So Ken and Phil, I can almost feel you guys twisting in your chair right now. Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, before Corey wraps it up, we talked about helping out a fellow official. And Daniel, maybe you can help me out on this next video as well. Sometimes our fellow officials, they just make a complete mockery of the game. Talk about how you can really help them out when they just embarrass themselves and embarrass the entire officiating community.
Oh my.
What is that?
What about when, I'd like to take a different angle too, Todd, and when your fellow official his level of, I don't want to say ineptitude, but his level of just disgrace for the play is so distracting that you can't even continue to finish officiating your play. Like, how do you continue to build a relationship with him, even though he just ruined that play? What we're going to see here is a side judge that is so ill prepared to officiate the play that the back judge just loses all focus of where he is, time, space, situational awareness is out the window.
That is the greatest hot throw in the history of football.
Oh, he's got a catch. Just ruled. He's got a catch there. So I look up. And we've got a clear and obvious foul for defensive pass interference around the 5-yard line. I look up, throw the flag, and I'm waiting for the side judge, and he reaches for a flag. Seems to be unsure about what's happening. Reaches for the groin area, I think, at one point. Doesn't find a flag there. I think reaches for a chest pocket at one point. Can't find a flag there. Ultimately throws his hat, in his ruling pass interference. Correctly so. So we got that part right, fortunately.
So
they made you a referee, huh? Holy!
And they made this man a referee.
Can we break down the process of what happened to your flag?
Yeah, so I mean, Corey he had a good discussion about being prepared. My flag happened to be in my locker, and this was the last play of the third quarter, I believe. My flag was in my locker from the beginning of the game, so I absolutely did not know that. Obviously, I didn't throw a flag prior to that play, but yeah, when the time came, it just wasn't there. And honestly, let's be for real. I put this play on for a specific reason. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. We all make mistakes.
Right.
I don't know if the field judge who was in that previous play was watching, and he's like, man, they're beating me up. They're killing me. Don't beat yourself up too bad, man. I mean, we've all made mistakes. We've all embarrassed ourselves. Clearly, this is embarrassment on another level. I knew I was going to get fired after this play, but apparently I didn't. I'm
You got
still here
promoted
today. Yeah, I did. Surprisingly enough.
I think every crew has one of those guys in the locker room that goes down that last minute checklist. Got your flags, got your bean bags. So if you don't have somebody on that crew, maybe you should be that person on your crew going forward. But that's a great point. Like we all screw up. There's two types of officials: ones that have screwed up and ones that just don't admit it. So we're all going to screw up at some point. We're never going to attain perfection in this. We hope to land somewhere near excellence. So any last minute comments from our panel of experts today before we close out?
I mean, if you haven't seen this hat toss yet, just watch this. Here it comes.
It's a thing of beauty.
Here we go, working. Pretty good cushion, breaking down, really good visual mechanics. Flag, and hat toss. Oh, that's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Man, that is so awesome.
The
Thanks.
best part was when I remembered, oh no, I have a catch too. I was going just bad, just awful.
Brandon, you can tell you just want to crack up as you get down here.
Yeah.
But good composure on your part to not to lose it.
I said, "Where's your flag?" He said, "We can't say it over the FCC regulated airwaves." He said, "I don't bleeping know." Oh, okay. Well, just tell me what you have. We'll move on.
Great play. Thanks for including
Appreciate you putting that on. Thanks, guys, for the time. This was a lot of fun. Just talking football like we've been doing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I like that. It's great to have this type of collaboration here with this, to have four voices on there, because game management for the everyone, we know that it is a challenge to get all of these aspects right, and it takes a crew of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, however many folks are involved with that game. If you have an alternate official, they can be to help with this type of stuff. It all comes down to how are we preparing, what are we doing to make sure that what the product that we are putting out there hits the highest level possible. And we are all perfectionists in this avocation. We all want it to go perfect, but we always fall short. So how do we deal with that, and what do we do the next time to inch a little closer? So closing out, let's go over, we got some upcoming sessions to go through here. We thank each and every one of you for spending the time that you do with us each and every week. Tomorrow, we're going to have another video-based rules session led by Brandon starting at 12 o'clock. And then this week, we have a couple midweek sessions. One middle of the day on Wednesday, May 6th at 12 o'clock Central. Kevin Boitman will be going through some unique enforcements. And so, don't let those surprise you on the field. Let's spend some time here in the beginning part of May to get better at those. And then Michael Vandervelde from the Big 12 on Thursday evening will go through the process of getting in and out of a referee's announcement. So while this will be definitely valuable to referees, I think everybody on the field should be a part of this because we all have a part to play, a role to play with getting in and out of announcements. And then next Saturday, Chris Talent will be a guest presenter and going through another aspect of game management and how do you effectively manage that substitution process. So there are 4 great sessions coming up. Hopefully you all can join us. But, as always, we thank you. Please stay happy and healthy out there. Have a great weekend. And, as of today, we have 118 days until we kick off. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that happens. So make every day count. Be prepared. Use the time now in May to get prepared for what we have coming in August and September. So everyone, thank you for spending a little extra time with us. I know this is closer to 2 hours than the hour, but this was great conversation. Have a great weekend, and we will see you soon.